The nose of this whiskey is not my favorite. I made a mistake. Technically, Micah could be a stripper if you want. We can pour this on him. Hey everybody, welcome to Big Whiskey Rebellion. We're back, and today I am with my good friend John Cecil, who actually used to live in Richmond. We kicked him out of Virginia, and he came back to Louisville, where he's from. And he built something very unique in his house. Most people in a space like this, most reasonable people, would actually build a sex dungeon. But John is even more of a, likes to abuse himself, so he spent God knows how much money on bourbon and has probably one of the coolest private bars I've ever seen. I've only seen pictures of it until today, and now I am here, and it's really cool. I mean, it blows me away, and I definitely have a lot of whiskey myself. So anyway, John Cecil.
Yeah, it started out as a sex dungeon.
Oh, nice.
And then the bourbon it followed suit. So, during COVID, what else was there to do other than build a speakeasy in your house? So, back in 2020, I decided from middle of February through the end of June, my uncle and I, Uncle Mike, we decided to build a speakeasy, and we worked on it one day a week.
Right.
And each week in between, it made it easy because each week I would plan, all right, this week we're doing drywall. I've got to get the drywall, have everything ready to go, sand down, whatever. It made the build really easy because I had 6 days to prepare for whatever was next.
Sure. I'm kind of impressed with the way you have the hidden slide door.
Oh yeah.
What kind of door was here before you put that up? Because that's actually really difficult to do. I've done something like that in my restaurants, and it's not easy.
Yeah. So first, when I thought about this room 10 years ago plus, I thought, who wouldn't want to have a hidden door, bookcase, sliding door entrance into a room? That's like every guy's dream. It doesn't matter what's on the other side of it. You got to have a hidden room, right?
Right.
So initially there was just a normal door, just classic turn door. I tore out that wall completely, and then I moved the wall from about where this table is to where the end of the room is. Once I had that wall set up, I knew how big I could make my bookcase, and my uncle and I we just went to town on it. So we've got half of it's here stationary, and then the majority of the door it's just a barn door sliding track.
I was actually really impressed. I mean, it slid so well, and there's a lot of stuff actually on the shelves. So yeah, that's pretty impressive.
I should probably put some kind of a roller on the bottom, but for right now, I mean, it's a solid piece.
So, I love this. These pieces here, was that one piece or two that you got together?
It actually was. So that was actually all one piece at one point. So if you look at the top,
yeah,
that was actually attached right there on the bar top. So I pried it up, flipped it upside down, and put it up on the ceiling and the wall.
That's really cool. And I'm guessing this was here, but then you added the
card
catalog.
Yeah, once that was in place. My aunt actually, so my uncle Mike, his wife, my Aunt Nancy. Aunt Nancy has one of those crickets that, you can make anything with vinyl.
Right.
So she has one of those, and she called me one day, and she was like, hey, can you send me the measurements for that little piece that's on the top of I guess right there at the bar top?
Sure.
And I was like, sure, whatever. So I sent her that little picture of, a ruler with how big that was. And about a week later, she shows up, hands it to me in an envelope.
Yeah.
She's like, here, you'll know what to do with this.
Nice.
I was like, oh, this is cool. So we put it on, and it fits. And that's now the logo for the Speakeasy.
I mean, the attention to detail that you paid in here is just intense and amazing. I don't understand why you have a card catalog over there, but it's really cool in here.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, so when I was coming up with a name for the Speakeasy, I was trying to think, God, what do I call it? The blind pig, it's been done. The white whale, it's been done. But I was reading all these books.
Why are you describing me?
I was thinking of all these books that they were Prohibition era. People would have been sitting around reading them because they couldn't drink a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I was trying to read these books and figure out, what do I call this room? And after a few books, I was like, God, I'm going to need a card catalog to keep track of all these books.
Yeah.
And then it hit me. So I used to be the Cardinal Bird mascot, as
Right.
you know, at the University of Louisville. So card made sense.
Right.
Catalog makes sense because if you think of the old Sears catalog you used to use back in the day.
Back in my day, that's how we got our Christmas presents.
If you think of the old, if you think of a catalog, you think of something that you open because
Right.
you're looking for something that you want. So think of this room, you open that door because you want something.
Oh yeah.
So card catalog made sense. Then at that point, I was like, what if I got like an old antique card catalog? So I did, and I used eBay, which I don't know if you knew eBay still existed, but it's still around.
I mean, honestly, my generation doesn't use these mythical things. But no, this is great. And I know that you're really not a whiskey drinker. You just drink flavored vodka. So
I've moved on to gin, actually.
nice. So back in the day, when I very first started doing whiskey school, I was telling the guys that are filming Micah on camera, you can say hi through the technology of lettering if you want, how sometimes at whiskey school it would just be you and me.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because over time that grew to like 100 people sometimes. And but the first ones were like the very best ones.
Yeah, they were awesome.
I'm trying to think of the one that was my favorite. It wasn't a bourbon one, it was a Balvenie, and we did every Balvenie scotch that was actually available in the state of Virginia.
That's right.
And I feel like I had to give you a ride home that night.
I think you did. Luckily, I only lived a mile and a half from
I really
whiskey.
it you drunk so I could drink your whiskey at your house. When,
That's what it was.
yeah, it was all my plan. But it wasn't really a huge amount of time ago in the grand scheme of things, but whiskey really wasn't cool when we started kind of becoming friends and like hanging out.
It really wasn't.
And about 2 or 3 years after we met is when it kind of boomed, and all of a sudden you and I had all kinds of mystery friends that we didn't know anymore.
That's true.
So one of the things that is awesome about whiskey is the fact that we all kind of trade bottles, share bottles. Off camera behind Micah today is actually my friend James. And when we were driving over here, because he wanted to check this place out too, we were both kind of talking about bottles that we had given each other, and I have no idea how many bottles I've given him or how many he has given me. I think he's given me more than, and I will take them and I will drink them because I like whiskey. But I brought one for you.
You are pretty stingy, of course.
That's true. I was like, I will squeeze a quarter to the poor little eagle start screaming in pain. Like, anyway, I brought a bottle for you today, and it's something that I don't know that you have ever had, but it is.
I'll take away the stingy comment now.
20-year. No, it's not an expensive bottle, so. This is a 20-year rye from Canada, Alberta Premium 20-year, and this is like a weird whiskey.
That's what we're into, right?
So technically, this was a gift for you. So I'm gonna let you open the bottle.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, I love the bottle. It's ribbed for his pleasure.
So I'm going to figure out how to do this as cool as possible without.
It's kind of not a cool
making
popping.
the.
The best way to do this one is with a knife.
Yeah, I know. And
just here you go. Hey, Micah to the
about
rescue.
that? You can actually video me cutting my finger open if you want.
Oh yeah, I got it close.
Right now.
I was a Boy Scout, so I know how to apply proper first aid technique. The first thing I will do is grab your Hirsch 16, crack it open to pour that whiskey on your finger.
That's exactly what you need to do.
Because it will absolutely sanitize.
I've heard that.
The entire time I'll be quoting from There Will Be Blood while that's happening. So this is a really weird whiskey.
Drink the...
You don't see 20-year rye very often. Actually, just leave that there in case James acts up. 20-year rye from Kentucky are very different than this one. And I'm going to preface this with what I told them earlier on the way. The nose of this whiskey is not my favorite. And when I first bought some, I was like, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. I bought something that I don't like. When you smell it, it actually has this weird, kind of pine pitchy nose. It's weird. I don't know what it is.
It's like a underripe banana custard.
That's probably, yeah. Well, I definitely get the banana on it. And I actually was at the Bowman distillery with some of this once, and I let Brian, the master distiller from that, try it. And he, with his years of wisdom, was like, well, that's because they caught it at the wrong place. And he may be right, he may be wrong. I don't know. Brian's a really nice guy. I got nothing, but it's.
The second time I noticed it, I got the shoe polish.
Yeah, that's
shoe shine shoe polish.
That's part of what I'm saying. It's like it's a weird ethanol-y, fruity note.
Yeah,
but it's some in a different shape. Glencairn, I get more of that unfinished lumber kind of quality. It's a strange whiskey.
Yeah,
and but on the palate, I love it. I mean,
I love the nose just because it's so unique. You don't smell things when it comes to whiskey. You don't smell things like that very often. Good, bad, or indifferent.
That's what she said. It doesn't taste anything like it smells, right?
No.
It's really bizarre. It's like this rich, velvety, soft, but full flavor.
Yeah.
And
still fruity. Almost bubblegummy.
Yeah, I can see that. The legs on it are really nice in the glass. It's only 84 proof, so you can drink the entire bottle and still text safely.
I was planning on it.
There you go. I love this whiskey, but it's also intimidating because it does drink too easy, which can be kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because most hyper-aged ryes like this, they either cost an arm and a leg,
sure,
or they're so overwooded that I don't like them.
Yeah.
And they're usually, even when they are overwooded, still really expensive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a fan of the constant chasing of things just for an age statement.
It gets expensive.
It does.
You do anything for 20 years, you're going to pay for it.
Yes.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, about how much was a bottle like this?
Well, this was like a $10,000 bottle. I'm giving you a banging gift. No, these retail for like $150. And it's just it's a great, not a daily unless you're, Bill Gates or
sure,
like a $150 bottle you don't want to drink all the time. But it is really special, and I kind of figured you didn't have one in here.
You're absolutely correct. But no, that would be a perfect go-to if you're looking to get away from bourbon for a day.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, who would want to do that? But if you're looking to get away from bourbon for a day, what a great change of pace.
So primarily, I drink Scotch.
Yeah.
So I get away from bourbon a lot.
Yes, you do.
And I love bourbon. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think bourbon is beautiful. However, Scotch is usually my preferred.
I've got a couple of Scotches that either on camera or off, I'd like you to sip with me.
Are you trying to get me drunk?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not just a pretty face, John.
But you are also a pretty face.
Not really. Well, so when we first got here, we were actually talking about something that we did in Richmond a lot before John moved. And we used to have these private like tasting parties where some other people in the industry, and John was kind of in the industry. He was a assistant GM of a very high-end hotel, but he was also a big whiskey fanatic. So we would all meet up and bring bottles. And
the bottle shares were epic.
Yes.
I mean, we had great times.
And one of the bottle shares, I brought probably one of the lowest priced brands, but it was the best whiskey of the night. But it wasn't.
Hands down.
Yeah.
It won across the board.
And we were trying some pretty epic stuff that night. And I gave John the bottle when it was empty because it was a very small bottle. And it was actually in the other room. And I got excited because I haven't seen this bottle for, how was that, 7 years ago?
It was 2016, late 2016.
Yeah, that was 7 years ago.
Unreal. Yeah.
So we think it's between you think it's a 67?
Yeah. I think it's 63, 67. So.
Well, doesn't the 63 mean when they started making the bottle, and then the 67?
I think so.
So probably a 66 or 67, but it's an I.W. Harper, and at that time, Stitzel Weller made this. And I bought this for my personal collection a long time ago, and I was like, I was intimidated Cecil here is, I mean, kind of a baller. And I knew this was going to be good, but when we poured it, it was like the mother's milk. I mean, I've never had a bourbon that I thought was better than this one. And when you think
That
of
says a lot for this guy.
yeah, I've tried a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
I was blown away, and I was kind of bummed that the whole thing was gone. But John was like fascinated by the bottle, so I was like, hey, take it, man. And it's really cool that it's still here because that was a long time ago.
Yep.
This is not the juice that we had.
Yeah, that's a bit of a refill.
Yes. And you just give this to your friends that don't know about us and be like, hey, you're having a 60s. No.
It's a tester bottle.
It's really just a display piece at this point, but
Yeah,
the bottles were
exactly.
so pretty back then.
Yeah, even the back of the bottle, how they kind of pillowed it
Yeah.
to just give it a really unique look. Just a little more class.
Yeah, definitely.
They don't do a whole lot of that anymore. I mean, you've got your old Fitz decanters and stuff like that are bringing some of that back. But if you think about the old holiday bottles that a place like Old Forester or some of those guys would have put out back in the day, or I mean, you think about some of the decanters that Beam or Old Commonwealth was putting out, and then even something as simple as pillowing the back of the bottle.
Yeah.
It's such a cool beauty touch that a lot of bourbon just doesn't think about anymore.
I agree. And for those of you at home that are listening, like when I say we were trying some stuff, one of the bottles that I also brought was a 20-year Pappy Van Winkle. And we side by sided this vintage Harper against that Van Winkle, and we went to, it wasn't bad. It was really good bourbon. I don't think I've ever had a bad Van Winkle product.
But by comparison,
this was so good. And so, it's kind of the point of this show is that you don't have to go chasing a lot of the things that other people chase. You have to find your own beat to get along and what you like. And actually, after having this, I started seeking out more of this kind of juice because I was just so blown away.
Yeah. That was one of the first bottles that really got me into Dusties too. I mean, I'd done some Dusties, but nothing much older than 80s. But then you get into the 70s and then the 60s and then the 50s. I mean, some of those bottles just from that point on, it was a hunting game.
Well, I already had a ton of Dusties, but what I did not have a ton of was Harpers from this era.
Yeah.
And so honestly, a lot of my hunting has been Harpers from this era because that was such an amazing experience.
Yeah, the cool thing about having a bourbon collection in Richmond, Virginia, just before the bourbon boom. So I moved to Virginia in 2015, and there wasn't a whole lot going on in the bourbon world. Obviously, there were, restaurants that were opening up on Parham.
Yeah.
But I mean, the bourbon boom was still just in its infancy. It had barely started. So moving to Virginia, having about a 600-700 bottle collection, and being able to not having friends at that point, and then trying to make friends, it became really easy.
Yeah.
With a couple hundred bottles of bourbon. So being able to host tastings and have friends over and talk to different bartenders. Here's a story that you don't know, or you might know it, but I don't think you do. So the first time that I set up my bourbon collection in my apartment at the time. So I set that up. It took about a week and a half to really set it up how I wanted it. Once I finished that, the next thing I did that day, I went and laid down on my bed. I opened up my phone and I searched bourbon bars, Richmond, Virginia. And one of them popped up less than a mile and a half from my house. And it was called McCormick's Big Whiskey. So I said, okay, I'm going to check this place out. So I drove down to the bar and restaurant. And I sit down at the bar, and there was this guy, starting to go gray. There was this guy standing behind the bar, doing his thing, whatever. And it wasn't super crowded, and I was grateful for that because I got to chat with this guy that the first thing he said was, what kind of whiskey you drink? I said, I know a little bit about whiskey, being pompous, being from Kentucky, whatever. But I said, I know a little bit about whiskey. And he goes, you might, but what kind of whiskey do you drink? So I pulled out my phone and I showed him the recently minted photos that I'd just taken of my new collection that I just put up. So I pulled that out and I handed it over to him. He goes, "All right, you know what you're talking about. What do you want?" So it was cool because, you know, a lot of times when Mac will recommend something, he's really excited to share something with you. But the first time that I met him, he let me kind of feel like I belonged before, you know, I even did. So that was a neat experience.
I mean, honestly, it was just pity, and you didn't know anybody. Your hair wasn't cool like it is now. You know, it just. But no, I mean, I find there's a problem with some other bars that do what we do. When I go to them, sometimes I pretend like I don't know anything, and there are some places where the bartenders kind of judge you if you act like you don't know, and it's really funny because I will order something or ask about something, not even order it, that I think sounds pretty awesome. And my experience at a lot of these restaurants is whatever I ask about, the bartender will always say, I don't know. And then they kind of immediately recommend something that costs like twice as much. And I'm like the opposite. I'm like, hey, have you ever tried this really cheap one that's awesome? And, you know, it's kind of new. And to me, I feel like it's better to keep the customer engaged in the restaurant and come a lot. Because over time, the nights they're actually trying to celebrate something special, they trust that we're going to give them the right thing when they want to spend the kind of money. But I don't think that's the experience I want to provide the first time you come there, or even the 20th time you come there. I feel like it should be like a neighborhood bar that just happens to have an amazing selection. And actually, I've seen some of those places here in Louisville.
Yeah.
I can't remember Expo.
I love Expo.
What a great little cocktail bar. I had a blast. You know, I actually didn't drink anything in there because I was already kind of buzzed from everywhere else. But like, if I lived in Louisville, I would go there. It was fun.
Some extremely talented bartenders down there.
They
do a great job.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. And so I've seen a lot of really cool places here. But my original bar, you never made it to the pub, did you?
I never did.
Total shithole. And very intentional. Like,
wait, no, I did.
We have clean bathrooms.
I did make it down there. It was a couple weeks before St. Patrick's Day. And one of my friends in Richmond, we were looking for a place to go, and I was like, let's go to McCormick's down at the bottom.
Yeah.
So we ended up there, and we had a bag of chips.
Yeah.
Off the little rack, and had a bunch of beer. Great.
It was all that in a bag of chips. Is that what you're saying?
Bingo.
There you go. I built that place when I was really young, and that was what was cool for me at 24, 25 years old. I wanted to go to places like that, and I still love my pub. And when I started doing this, we had it there, and I couldn't convince anybody to try anything. Actually, right behind us on your wall, I see all of your Old Forester birthday bourbons.
Oh yeah.
And there are pictures of me at the pub where it was just sitting on our first shelf, not even the high one. And I have our old terminal from back then, and I was curious about some of our pricing, and I looked it up, and this was $7.25 a shot.
That's awesome.
And then the Pappy Van Winkle 23 year at the pub back then was $28.
If we only knew then.
Yeah, it was really good with Mountain Dew back then. Like
the best. That's still how I drink it.
Yeah. I mean, don't all the real bourbon drinkers. But it's crazy how it's changed. But I still don't want to let go of kind of that punk rock Irish pub feel. And so when I give you the experience, and I always tend to ask you, or any customer, I say things like, well, do you want to try something that's great that you can get, or do you want to try something that you can't get? And those are two very different experiences for people. And
for sure.
But my preference is to show people something they can get, because that means they're not going to be paying a ridiculous price for it. And this is something that you can't get in Virginia, but it's awesome, and you can get it in other places.
Yeah. It's really good.
It is. As it sits,
So no, I was saving that last step. So I just got something new on the palate.
It's super, like you have a caramel Werther's or something in your mouth.
For me, I got a vanilla banana split.
I can see that, because it really does get this giant, and it's not vanilla like bourbon.
No.
It's vanilla.
It's actually like cooking vanilla.
Right. It's a really weird flavor. Micah doesn't drink at all, or else we would offer him some. But anyway, enough about this particular whiskey. I think that you should tell us more about your place.
Yeah, so I want to tell you about something that I actually stole from you, so you're welcome. Didn't steal anything, actually, but I took something from you whenever you first introduced me to
I think
some
somebody told me that
scotches.
you use my wine and
I
beer
do.
and
Exactly.
dessert palette trick that I do.
Exactly. So that's one of the coolest things that I learned from you was asking those three questions.
Yeah.
So obviously, viewers, you're probably very well aware.
I haven't actually done it here.
Oh shit!
Stop harassing my customers or viewers with my secrets.
So should I not explain?
No, that's fine. Go ahead. So I completely made this method up, by the way.
So I love it, and
Thanks.
I've completely embraced it.
Okay.
So, but I always give you credit. So, when I first started going in after that first experience, I was not a Scotch drinker. Mac told me that I just didn't know what good Scotch was.
And I absolutely know everything. So
yeah, so that's why I trusted him. He told me that. He told me he knows everything. So I didn't know what good Scotch was, and I fully admit that. And as he was teaching me about Scotch, he would ask me three questions. So he said, if I drink beer, what kind of beer did I drink? Mm-hmm. If I drink wine, what kind of wine did I drink? And if I was reaching for a midnight snack, guilty pleasure food, dessert, whatever, what would it be? And those three questions I have come to use for bourbon tastings. I'll host probably 2-3 times a week at this point, but I use those three questions, and here's how I use it. So when I ask about beer, I'm actually asking about grains.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what kind of grain mash bill that they're going to like.
Right.
When I ask about wine, I'm trying to figure out fruit.
Yeah.
What kind of fruit palette are they looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I ask for midnight snack, guilty pleasure food, that's leading me toward yeast. So the yeast profile, or some of those kind of things. And then sweet, salty,
sure,
nuts, chocolate, bitter, whatever I get off of that. But those three things really are what makes up bourbon or really anything.
So I've actually changed it a little bit. Just
holding out on me.
No, you live in Kentucky. I mean, and you never visit, you never call. So at the snack side, I changed, and the snack side it was great, except sometimes it was a little too broad, and so now I just say, so you have three desserts sitting in front of you, piece of cheesecake, fruit tart, or a chocolate cake. Which one are you going to grab? Because those three, kind of encompass most of the flavors in the whiskey world.
Yeah.
And that tells me what they would like as a finish on their palate.
I get that.
And that's usually somebody says, well, if you stack all three together, and I'm like, awesome. Okay, Baltimore Zoo. Got it. But so I changed it a little bit. Salty is something that it would give me an answer. And Micah would like it because there are salty whiskeys out there, and they usually come to the Isla region of Scotland. But if I handed you that, you'd probably be like, oh my God.
But you think about like a Knob Creek.
Yeah.
You're getting a peanut, salty kind of characteristic there. So if somebody says peanuts, guess what I'm reaching for? Either Knob Creek or Old Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
So it's got its place. My favorite part about it is whenever I do a tasting, there's usually 4 to 6 people in here.
Right.
And somebody will say, oh, I really like Cooler Ranch Doritos with Monterey Jack cheese sprinkled on top of it, put in the microwave.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets to make fun of that person the rest of the night. So it becomes more of a social game than anything.
Well, so when I do that system, it's usually a one-on-one thing, so it's a little different.
That is absolutely
because I really am trying to find the perfect whiskey for the person in the price range that they ask me to stay in.
Sure.
And most of the time, I usually find one that's cheaper because that just creates a more frequent customer.
Yeah.
Anytime a bartender is looking at a customer as a way of, making their entire income for the week or something, it's terrible. And a person will spend a lot more over a lifetime of visits than they will on one visit.
100%.
And so I train my staff to never do that.
Yeah, the whole teach a man to fish
yes.
Story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I really appreciate it. And actually,
So glad you get to stop.
we do have one more bottle to show you, and I don't want you to give me this because you only have a little bit left. But where is it? There it is.
Yep.
So this was how good of friends he and I were. I sold this
He's a much better friend, apparently.
to John at retail when we both knew it was way not worth retail. But this is probably, in my opinion, the rarest kernel aged Taylor.
In my opinion, that's the best one that they put up.
It is. And I pour this on strippers all the time because it is so good.
That's what happened to most of this bottle.
I believe it.
Yeah.
But this is the cured oak from Colonel H. Taylor. And when I first got one of these, I tried it and he hadn't had it, which was kind of shocking because he was from here. And he was like, yeah, I've been looking for one forever. And I was like, I got you. And it's amazing that this is the bottle.
The bottle.
It's pretty cool because that was a long time ago.
We're actually going to do this.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, we have to let James try it. Have you ever had the cured oak?
Yes.
Oh, really? Awesome. I don't know too many people have had. Like, you don't count, Micah. Like,
We'll change the word sold to gave.
all right. This is
Game time.
okay. Dude, this is going to kill your bottle. I can't do that.
We want to do one more pour for the
Micah.
group.
Yes, let Micah try it.
There we go.
This is way better than that Alberta Premium.
Yeah.
No, the Alberta
debatable.
Premium is really good, but it's like, this is a whole nother world.
Well, here's the thing. This one's only 17 years. That one's 20. So,
Yes, that doesn't make it better.
So if we're talking about, I'm just kidding. There's that for you when you're ready.
That was Micah's arm.
All right. Cheers, brother.
Cheers. Thank you so much. I feel bad killing your bottle. I do. I feel bad.
Better not. If there was any reason to kill this bottle, so this was a 2015, 17-year-old, and the only reason that this bottle is in this room is because of this guy. So if there was anybody to kill this bottle with, it's you.
Well, I really appreciate it. And, I mean, technically, Micah could be a stripper if you want. We can pour this on him.
Probably will be
Yeah,
after this pour.
I might have ones in my pocket.
Oh.
It's so good. There's a problem with this bourbon because there's not a lot of bourbons out there that are this good anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
there's
right.
some really great ones.
You're
As a
right.
matter of fact, our behind-the-scenes friend James brought something that I would say is on par with this as far as quality. And the way he made it kind of makes me a little sad because he destroyed another good bottle of whiskey to make it. However, these kind of things, I don't even think they could happen anymore. Like, it's just such a, it's the bourbon boom is great for my business. It's keeping all my employees in their jobs, but it's also changed the products dramatically that we get. I'm in Louisville today because I was doing a pick for the restaurant of an Old Forester barrel-proof single barrel, and actually James brought this up, that the age of the whiskey was probably 5 years old, and when they started that program, they were more like 6.5 years, and so there's a change even there. And I understand the change. I'm not mad at them for that change. I'm very happy that we got to do this pick, but it is weird. It's kind of crazy how the industry is changing.
Yeah, it's wild. But I mean, gosh, you think about what 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved to Virginia in 2015.
Yeah.
Boom hasn't really happened yet, but during my time there, 2015 through 2017, it really exploded.
It did.
And especially during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
the 2020, the hunters and flippers that started during COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, the boom was already there. It took it to a whole nother level.
Yes.
So I mean, it's pretty wild.
Well, I do think over time, as all these distilleries expand their production capabilities, we'll be able to get back to doing stuff like this.
I really hope so.
And I mean, in the meantime, I still buy whatever I can find for my restaurant or for myself.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know that we'll see this for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I can really think of that is, high-end, high-age would be like the old Fitz that they're putting out right now.
Yeah, I just tried the 19. It was spectacular.
Yeah.
I really loved it. But
Or the...
I got one bottle. I had enough of this to feel like it was cool to sell you a bottle for retail.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right.
there's a big difference.
Or the like the King Kentucky 18 year that just came out last year. I mean,
I've never seen that.
those are the kinds of bottles that, if this is going to happen again,
Yeah.
it's going to be from companies who are doing stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of those out there.
Well, I think we have talked way too long, and I'm
Well-
sure the viewers are probably like, "Holy shit!
Oh, they
Would you
left.
shut up?"
They left long ago.
Yeah. But thank you guys for coming. Cheers.